Hi you guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Patience. To my existing subscribers, welcome back. If this is your first time here, be sure to click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can continue to indulge in the Haute Bella experience. In today's video, I am going to be using one of the palettes that has been sitting in my collection for quite some time, and that is the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette. So this palette I purchased during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty a little while ago, but I'm just now getting around to using it, or I take that back. I was on vacation and I took this palette along with one other palette on that vacation with me, and I brought this along as a primary palette. And I really love the metallic shades in this palette. The shades definitely scream out pigmentation and bright and beautiful shades. I really like the color story of this palette. Now, I will admit there were a couple of shades in this palette that I did find to be a little bit anticlimactic for me, and that was this black shade. This shade is called Decadent, and it really does add to the color story. However, I had a little bit, I was confused by it actually, because when I applied it to my lid, it appeared to be black. However, when I added other colors to it, it wasn't dominant enough or pigmented enough, or didn't stay put enough for it to remain black. It started to blend in to the other colors that I already had on my lid. And you guys have heard me mention this before, but one of the things that I look for when I'm trying to determine just how functional or effective a palette is going to be, some of the characteristics that I look for is it blendable? Yes, it's blendable. Is it pigmented? Yes, it's pigmented. But I'm also paying attention to how well the colors stack on each other, because that's huge in my opinion. It's important that when you're adding a purple on top of a pink, that you can still see both colors. So that was one of the challenges that I had with this palette, but yet and still, I do like this palette. I'm glad it's in my collection, and I think that it allowed me to create a beautiful look today. I'm also using my airbrush complexion products. You guys, as I've mentioned before, I've used airbrush foundations and airbrush complexion products on clients for various occasions, various events, but I had never really airbrushed my own skin or my own face, and I am loving the way the airbrush makeup comes off on my skin. If you guys would like to see how I created this look, then keep watching. So my face has been moisturized, and I used the Confidence in a Cream from IT Cosmetics. I also used the Farsali Skin Tune Blur to prime my skin. I've also prepped my eyelids and done my eyebrows. And I'm going to go into the Chocolate Gold palette, and I'm going to use the shade right here. This is called Famous, and I'm going to use this as my brow bone highlight. I'm going to use the shade right here, and this is called Cocoa Truffle. So this is a nice brown shade, so I figured that it'll make a really good transition shade. So I'm going to use this in my crease area as my transition shade. And as usual, I'm just going to build this up to my desired intensity. This is a really nice transition shade. Very pretty. I like that. And now I'm going to use this pink shade right here, and this is called New Money. And this is a gorgeous pink shade. I really like this color. So yeah, I'm going to use this in my crease area right on top of where I have applied the transition shade. And I'm using a smaller blending brush to get right into that crease area. I like that. So I'm going to go back in with the same brush that I used to apply my transition shade, and I'm just going to soften up the edges just a little bit. I'm not applying any additional eyeshadow or anything like that to this brush at this point, but I'm just kind of just softening up the upper portion of where I have applied my crease color. I just want these to just kind of marry together really nicely. So I'm using a really light hand just to get them to blend in together. I like that. And now for my outer V, I'm going to go into this black shade right here. This is called Decadent, and I'm going to use an even smaller blending brush, and I'm going to apply this to the outer V. And I'm just stamping this into my outer V first, just to get the placement right, and then I'll start to blend it in. Gotta even them out just a little bit. I like that. And I am carving out my lids using a little bit more of my P. Louise eyeshadow base. And that looks good. And I'm gonna go back in with that same small blending brush that I used to apply the black to the outer portion of my eye. And I'm just going to soften up these edges where I have applied this base just a little bit more. So I'm not adding any additional eyeshadow, just cleaning up with whatever is on the brush right now. Just using that remaining product just to soften up these edges. Looks good. And now I'm going to use this green shade right here called Money Bags, and I'm going to place this right on top of the area where I have carved out my lids. I'm going to try this with a brush first, but I may have to go in with my Silicone eyeshadow applicator. You guys have heard me talk about that silicone eyeshadow applicator, and I love it. I love the way it applies glitters and metallic shades. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and switch over and do that right now. This is what this silicone applicator looks like. I picked this up from Sephora. Very pretty. I love the way this applicator applies eyeshadows. Very pretty. And now for this portion of my eye right in here, I am going to use this shade, which is called Hala for a Dollar. So this is a gorgeous, almost like a shimmery olivey green type of shade. So I'm going to use this just to marry all of these colors together that I have on my lid right now. I'm liking that. And because I have hooded eyes, I have got to give a little bit more definition into this area where I have manipulated my natural crease. So I don't have a deep brown or anything like that that I can use from this chocolate gold palette. I wanted to use this purple shade, but it is a shimmery shade, so I am a bit hesitant to add a shimmery shade in this area where I really want to add definition. That can sometimes be a no-no for those of us with hooded eyes. So I'm going to go back into this black here, and this is called Decadent, and I'm going to add a little bit of definition in this area here. So we're going to try that and see how that looks. And I think I'm not going to drag this all the way over into the inner corner of my eye. I'll take it about halfway. And I'm just doing like a little tickle right at the top there. And then just kind of wrapping it around a little bit. This black is a bit interesting. This is the first time that I've really used the black. I took this palette, or I used this palette while I was on vacation, and I used more of the shimmer shades. I didn't use the matte shades so much, but this black is a little different for me right now. We're gonna make her work. Not too bad. So this is very interesting. I don't know if you guys can see this or if the camera is picking this up, but in the areas where I have applied the black, it's actually showing up as purple. I added black to the outer portion here, so I was hoping that that black would still stand out, but it looks like that is actually bleeding into almost a purple. It's playing okay with this look, but that's a bit interesting. But I'm going to go ahead and add my liner and my lashes. So I have added my liner and my lashes, and I did have to go back into the chocolate gold palette, and I went back into my transition shade, and that is this shade right here, and it is called Cocoa Truffle. And I did have to add a little bit more of that into my crease area just to give myself a little bit more definition. But now I am going to get ready to start with my complexion. So before I do that, I'm going to start off doing some concealing and contouring. I want to have all of the areas concealed and contoured prior to adding my airbrush foundation, because the airbrush foundation does apply very light, so I want to have all of the concealing and contouring done already. So I'm going to use my Fenty Beauty concealer. This is in the shade 380, and I'm also going to use my Charlotte Tilbury contour wand, and I'm going to go ahead and get these products in place so I can start with mixing up my foundation shade for my airbrush. Now for the contour, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. And I'm going to use my sponge to blend this out. Take a smaller brush to blend out my contour around or down the sides of my nose. Using a sponge would make it spread, and I don't really want it to spread out. I just want it to blend out. Slim out that nose, girl. Looks good. And before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and set my under eye area, and I'm going to be using one of the Pro Filter powders from Fenty Beauty, and this is in the shade Banana. Looks good. All right, and I'm going to get started with my complexion, and I'm going to be using two of the Temptu foundations. I'm using number 7, and this is a golden shade, and I'm using number 8, which is a clay shade. And the golden shade is what I'm using to match closest to my complexion, and then I'm using a little bit of the clay to add in the warmth that I need. So I'm going to shake the two of these up really, really good. This is the custom pod, and this is what you would use to be able to mix your customized foundation colors. And I'm going to drop the foundation right into this little compartment here. And now I'm going to apply this foundation to my skin. And now that I've got the first layer down, I'm not pulling back on the trigger here. I'm just letting some air blow over this airbrush foundation just to dry it down. And then I'm going to go in with another layer. So I'm only using air right now. And I'm going to apply another layer. So one of the key things to remember when you're applying airbrush foundation particularly is to keep moving, because if you stop, you're going to end up with what's called a hot spot, and that's where it goes on too concentrated in one area. So the key is to just keep moving, and also to stop and just let the air blow over it to help it to dry down. So come down on the neck a little bit, blend everything together. How smooth that is. Let's go over with some air. That's beautiful. And now I'm going to use another of the Temptu AirPods, and this is in the shade Pale Pink. And this is the shade that I'm going to use for my blush. So I'm going to shake it up really well. I'm going to pop the top off of the pod like so. And I'm going to slide it into my compressor like that. I'm going to turn her on. Put it on the lowest setting. 1 is the lowest setting there. And I am going to gently pull back on the trigger. And wherever you feel air, that's where the product is going to go. So I'm going to just add a little blush, just a little bit. And I'm going to use just my semi-dry sponge, just in case you overdo it. You know, it's always a way to correct it. It's very forgiving. So just want to make sure I don't overdo it. And I'm not pulling back on the trigger, just allowing the air from the airbrush gun here just to dry it down for me. And blush is done. I'm now going to use the shade Chestnut, and this is another AirPod. This is one of the Perfect Canvas AirPods. So I'm going to shake this up really well. Do the same thing, shake it up really well, pop the top off, and then I am going to slide this right into my air gun like so. And I'm going to put this on the same setting, which is number 1. I'm going to gently pull back on the trigger, and I'm going to start to contour or bronze up my face. Gonna come down the sides of my nose, again, just like that. Looks very pretty, very, very soft, very, very soft, very pretty. And now it's time for my highlight. This is another AirPod from Temptu. It's in the shade Rose Gold and it's a part of their Perfect Canvas line. I'm going to shake it up really good. Pop this little top off right here, like so. And then I am going to place this into my air gun, like so. The setting is still number 1. And I am going to gently pull back on the lever and I'm going to add my highlight. Add a little bit on my nose, down the bridge of my nose a little bit down there, a little bit on my Cupid's bow, and keep your sponge handy just to shape it up. You go a little bit too overboard, but that is nice and soft, very soft. I love the way airbrush highlight looks, so smooth. I'm gonna let the air from the airbrush gun just kind of blow over it, not pulling back on the lever, so there's no product coming out. This is just drying it down. Gorgeous. So I'm going to line my lips with my favorite MAC lip pencil. This is in the shade Chestnut. And I'm going to be using Disco Bell. This is from MAC and it's from their Bling Thing liquid lip color collection. So this is what this looks like. Very, very pretty. Ooh, she is. And I think this look is done. I have been able to create some really beautiful looks using the chocolate gold palette. However, the darkest shade in the palette does confuse me a bit. Not only do I look for blendability and pigmentation in a palette, I need stackability as well. The Temptu Airbrush Complexion products wear so lightly on my skin. I love this. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye-bye.